Welcome to the Science and Paranormal with Dr. Yana and Dr. Elliot, where science meets the unexpected, where we delve deep into the mysteries that straddle the line between scientific inquiry and paranormal. Get ready for a mind-altering journey as we embark on this phenomenal discovery together on United Public Radio Network 107.7 FM.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome to Science and the Paranormal tonight. It's Tuesday, August 13th, 2024. And we have Tony Rathman and Ron Yacovetti tonight. We had them on a couple weeks ago talking about some EVP, electronic voice phenomena, intercontinental transcommunication or ITC devices, and their specific project called Staticom project. So very lucky to have those guys back. Welcome back to the show, guys.
Thanks for having us back.
Yeah, thank you.
Welcome back. And it's so good to have you back because we got a lot of positive response and so many people were interested in what you do.
Oh, that's fantastic to hear. We're honored to be here the first time, and to come back at any time, let alone so soon, was a big deal to us. So we thank you for your hospitality and the opportunity to talk with you again.
Absolutely.
That's great, guys. I'm so glad that back. We're broadcasting live, guys, from United Public Radio Network, the UFO Paranormal Radio Network, 105.3 and 107.7 FM out of New Orleans, and also on Roku TV. So welcome, guys. I know you guys have been busy. We were talking a little bit there back stuff you guys were up to. Why don't you fill us in on what you've been doing since the last time we spoke?
All right. Well, we attended the Gettysburg Bash Paracon. What was that, 2 weeks ago, Ron? 2.5?
Yeah.
2.5.
Just about 2.
Yeah. Great event. Lots of people came. There were about 100 vendors there. We got to run Staticom live Saturday during the day, Saturday night, and most of Sunday morning we ran it as well because people just kept coming in wanting to hear it. So that was fantastic. And then we head back. We fly out very early, very late Thursday night, very early Friday morning. We're heading back for the Paranormal Symposium that's happening. We're going to speak on the analytic idealism and the ITC version of more the philosophy version of what Staticom can do.
That's great. For these events, guys, out of curiosity, I organized the Halifax Paranormal Symposium. Do they pay you guys to go there? Do they help cover some of your guys' costs with travel? What kind of deals have you guys been getting?
All the events are since they're independently run, do it differently. Everybody who does the Gettysburg Battlefield Bash does it on their own dime because it's a charity. Most of the money goes to wounded warriors, for veterans who are in need and their families. And then some of it I also know went to there was a side charity thing. There may be more, but for Daniel Class, who's from the Hinsdale House and from Deathwalker with Nick Groff, his daughters was diagnosed with a form of cancer, and so they were raising money to help him too, which says a lot about the people in the community to do something like that, to care to do something like that. That makes us look good, and that makes us proud to be a part of it. So in that case, everybody's time and endeavors were donated.
Right.
Some of them are different. Lourdes and I are going to the UK for the Festival of the Unexplained next month to speak on analytic idealism, philosophy of mind, and the Staticom project. That's everything's covered, soup to nuts, the whole trip, everything. So it really depends on the event. But a lot of them are great opportunities to see some of our peers we don't get to see, to share ideas. A lot of people who we've a ton of respect and love for in the field had never actually seen us do our lecture presentation on Staticom and analytic idealism. And so it was people in and out of the room on and off throughout the weekend. But when we did the lecture on 6:30 p.m. on Saturday, the room was packed. And that made us feel good because at least people were curious to see what we were going to say about what we do. The whole communication thing somewhat speaks for itself. You hear it, you understand it, but for us to explain it and then get into the philosophical angles of it too was fun. So yeah, each event is kind of its own entity, but around here, like, there's a lot of really good events, and for us, the main criteria is mutual respect. It represented well for a good cause, and we see a lot of that. So
Yeah,
that's what brings us out.
Well, that's fantastic. And when you guys travel with the Staticom gear, how much gear is that? Like, what kind of pieces of equipment are you bringing to these events?
a lot of it depends on the size of speakers, of how it's being. I mean, when we went to Gettysburg, I literally fit everything I needed in a backpack, just Staticom alone. And then, I had one more. No, I didn't. I combined both. So I only had a carry-on going on the plane.
Right.
Clothes, personal items, and all of Staticom. And it worked fine. There was no issues at all.
Yeah,
Well,
we do that.
great.
When we go on a plane, we'll take like a laptop bag that has room pack means to me more, and people hear my stuff. Yes, George, absolutely. It was an honor. We were really grateful for people showing up.
Yeah.
But yeah, like when I'm going for the UK trip, I have literally a backpack thing. When we do local events, we'll bring a bigger speaker because some of the sound will get eaten alive if it's too cavernous. It gets hard to hear or it's too echoey. So we'll bring a bigger speaker, and then because people are going to look at something, right? So we bring a monitor that faces them so they can kind of see the software components running and get an idea of what's going on. Traveling, I won't bring it. I actually bought a flat monitor that folds that I can put outward facing on the table when we travel. But we bring like a stand with a curved monitor that goes on top of the table, and we'll dress it up more when it's going in the car. When it's going 30,000 feet in the air, I'm leaving room for socks and underwear like Rathman.
You had a projector there, though, and that worked great.
I did, yeah. We brought a projector because we were doing the presentation also. And a lot of places will have those things provided. Next weekend, the symposium is going to have projectors and screens and stuff. I offered to bring mine if it helped, but they had everything handled. It's really Alex Matsuo and her committee who's running the research symposium doing a nice job of accommodating everybody's needs.
Well, that's fantastic. I know we had spoken after the last show about possibly bringing you in for one of our Halifax Paranormal Symposiums. So I'm definitely going to keep you guys in mind after October once this symposium runs and we take a look at how we did and how our finances are. Yeah, you never know. I'll try and work out a deal, see if we can get the two of you to come. And I know I already promised a spot to Dr. Yana for next year. So yeah, we'll.
The spot is taken, guys. I didn't know.
Yeah, no, I've got a couple spots. I promised.
Compete with me.
but I've got. I do have Ron and Tony on my hit list here, so we'll see. I might already have my guest speakers, picked for next year. So I know Shag Harbor. So we run two big conferences in Nova Scotia. They do the Shag Harbor UFO Expo. If you guys haven't heard, in 1967, October 4th, the UFO crashed off the coast of Nova Scotia, and they kind of call it Canada's Roswell because it was just as big as Roswell. The only nice thing is that we actually have government documents that show it was a UFO crash. They don't know what hit the water. They didn't find any bodies, any wreckage. They just saw it crash into the water. There was a strange yellow foam on top of the water. The Canadian Navy was involved. The U.S. Navy was involved. The Coast Guard, the RCMP, who I used to work for, they all went out, did their investigation, didn't find anything. So they do kind of an annual UFO conference there, and then we do kind of an annual paranormal conference where we talk about all kinds of different things. So I'll try and see if I can maybe get you guys there for next year, and
we'll work it out. You get us on the bill. We'll find it. We'll find a way to work it out. It would be so cool to come up and do it. We would really love to.
Absolutely,
yeah,
we appreciate that very much.
I think it'll be a blast, and I know we plan on doing it this year too. But afterwards, we all went down to the bar at the bottom of the hotel, and we all sat around with some of the guest speakers that were there. And you get to kind of chit chat and share information and stuff as well afterwards. So I think it would be great. Now, when you guys were in Gettysburg, did you guys run Staticom, and what kind of things were you picking up there?
Well, yeah, absolutely. We ran it 2.5 days straight, or no, 1.5. Saturday, all Saturday night, and Sunday till about 1 o'clock, I think we stopped.
Yeah.
But when you're in front of a live audience, the information and the questions asked, a lot of them come from the audience, because that's what they came to do. They came to hear it. They came to test it for themselves, and they're picking questions that are personalized to them. Did they get answers? Absolutely, they did. But they weren't necessarily scientific-based questions to form some sort of research hypothesis. They were literally random people coming, going, "Wow, this is incredible. Hey, do you know what my name is? Do you know when my birthday is? Do you know?" Whatever it came to mind. So it was more on the educational from what Staticom is and what it does, and a little bit on the entertainment side for the audience that was in there.
Yeah, as a public-facing event, that's there's going to be a certain level of hoop jumping on our behalf, to entertain them with what it does and demonstrate it. But we bring it out to stuff like that if it's public-facing, for them to try it out and play with it themselves and interact and see for themselves what it does, to hear something in real time, knowing how it works. That's really the main part of it. When we actually look to make strides and record things and see if we can figure out how to advance it and understand it, that we do, in our home sessions behind closed doors and compare notes and all that. So there's a rigorous process, and then there's the, hey, this is for you people process.
Yeah.
Right.
It's so interesting that Tony mentioned that it was not, the questions were not per se scientific. Would be so interesting if we ask any questions and would be some scientific person on the other side, like Jung, for example. I would like to get in touch with. But it is so strange to me that once people pass on the other side, not one single scientist came back. Those are, in fact, that were interested in this kind of research, and none of them came through. So that would be interesting if they actually did.
Some of the research that's been done in early ITC, I know there was a couple different people. One of them, I think, was the gentleman who coined the term ITC, which was Ernst Sinkowski, who was a German physicist, had a call encounter, and so did Mark Macy from Colorado, who's also one of the earlier pioneers of ITC. They both got phone calls that were voice matched spot on. And if you heard them, to Konstantin Radove, who was, the Radove diode. They used to call EVPs Radove voices back in the day. And it was him calling. I mean, I don't know how else to explain it. It was, again, they matched the voice. The first time it happened to Macy, he didn't have it set up to record. The second time he got the call, he recorded the call when it came in. And it was on a landline phone, if I'm not mistaken. And that was the point he was advised by Radove to use VLF, which is what's below long wave, which I think they used to
frequency.
Right. Emergency and submarine communication used to be on VLF. I think emergency purposes is now in the upper gigahertz range, but it used to be back then in the lower register. And they were running cables for antennas like under the ground across the street to try to pull in VLF frequencies and stuff. But that was an instance of it. And I know there are other research projects out there that claim to be communicating with different teams on the other side of people who are names of note. Some of them have names of entertainers. I'm not sure how that factors into it, but right. But yeah, there are claim that.
When you guys were at Gettysburg and you had some of the audience asking questions, did anything impactful come through to anyone? Like, did anyone make contact with a loved one or anything like that?
There were answers given to, I would say probably 60% of the questions that were asked received answers. There was one lady that asked whether there was some entity sitting next to her because she could feel something on her arm. The answer clearly came back yes. did she ask a name? I can't remember, Ron. I think she asked who was sitting next to me, and it answered, oh.
Yeah, I don't remember what it was, but she did get
That lady was getting hit on.
Right?
By some entity.
Even if you don't want to go, it's nice to be invited to the party.
Quite possible, yeah.
But that, I mean, and there were, I can't even tell you how many dozens of situations like that where somebody asked a question, just random as can be, and answers popped out. But as I was saying before, this was the first time we ran two different versions. Well, they're similar, but two slightly different versions of Staticom back to back. And what we would do is we'd run one for a while and then switch it over to the other. So Ron says, well, let's see if we can give them a password and see if they'll say that word before they start speaking when we switch machines. And we did this probably at least 4 or 5 times. And we changed the password every time we switched. And every time we said, okay, what's the password when we switch machines, that password was spit right out. So that was interesting that we could
some
switch.
cyber spies you have there, and that's dangerous.
Right.
I was just thinking about your statement too, Dr. Yin, about scientists have coming through. Allegedly, in the skull experiment, they had a couple of scientists apparently come through their ITC devices, trying to help them improve the skull experiment and the tech. One of the people that allegedly that had come through was Thomas Edison. Sir Oliver Lodge was another individual that had apparently come through. He was a British physicist in the field of radio and electromagnetic waves. And apparently Sir William Crookes, who was a chemist and a physicist, had also tried to come through and help them as well. I'm sure you guys would have been, with the type of work you do, familiar with the skull experiment for sure.
Yeah,
what's your take on it? There's some people that don't think it was real. I've watched a documentary. I've read what the SPR, the Society for Psychical Research, has said on it. I mean, to me, it seems like it was very well done. I don't know. What's your take on it?
I believe it was pretty legit. First of all, I had conversations before he passed away with Robin Foy, who was one of the, I think there were originally 3 couples, right? And then the first couple fell out, and then it ended up being just the 2. Right. From what I saw, and there's 2 books out. One of them's, I think, called The Skull Experiment, and the other one's called The Skull I forget. There's 2 different books. One of them is an account from a second-person perspective for people who are assessing what went down, but they weren't privy to any of it. The other one is from actual reports from people, I believe, that were SPR related, and they did get to sit in on some of it. They weren't allowed to use even IR cameras in the beginning because they said light would affect communication and the development of the connection. So that was something they had to wait to do later on. Of course, that raises suspicion because people want to get cameras in there. Right. Some of the stuff that they did with app ports, I know there was a newspaper that was produced that had a distinct printing and style that they were able to match to like the elite printer from, I forget what era it was, like the 30s or 40s, and there was no degradation to the paper whatsoever.
Correct.
A lot of the Edison's signature on the piece of microfilm, which they had locked up on their lock and key.
Right.
The bracelets that glowed in the dark, the Velcro on they couldn't touch footsies under the table, and to me, it seemed like it was pretty buttoned down. I think that. And we face, I mentioned it the last time we were here, but we have this, you have to meet this certain level. You have to meet a prima facie level of plausibility to make something worth looking into. Once you start looking into it, then you have to hit a certain level of credibility with what you produce to be looked at, to be serious. Like, this is not BS. This is actually something to it. If it's too good, if you exceed that bar a little bit too much, then you start raising suspicions about being illegitimate and hoaxing, fabricating stuff. Right. So I think in the field with stuff like that, that was what they did was phenomenal. The commitment, 5 years, twice a week in the basement, doing these sessions under the constraints that they did. And there's a lot of Monday morning quarterbacking in the field where people look at it and go, it could have been this, it might have been that. And maybe. but you can't call a penalty on a football game 3 weeks after it's over. If you're going to call something, you got to call it within a certain amount of time, or it's almost baseless. You got to have a connection to what happened. I think what they did was legit. I do.
Yeah, they had some amazing stuff. For anyone that has not seen the documentary, it is available on YouTube for free. Just type in the Afterlife Investigations, the Skull Experiment, and it's about an hour and a half long, but it's very, very interesting. There was even a gentleman, sort of kind of what Staticom does, but there was a gentleman over in Italy that had designed a device where he took the radio transmitter receiver out of the box and was still getting conversations coming through, much like what you guys have tried to eliminate with Staticom. So I believe
that's Alexander McRae. I think that's Alexander McRae. It was for EVP. I don't think he was doing ITC work with it, but he was doing EVP recordings with a device that he created that didn't have a microphone.
That's him.
Yeah, it was very, very interesting. And with the cameras, as you guys had mentioned, there was actually a point where they secretly turned on the cameras when they were doing apports or things that would appear out of nowhere. And they kind of secretly turned it on, and they actually caught a few things appearing in the room, even though the people didn't really know that they were recording. So very interesting documentary. It's definitely worth watching for the hour and a half for sure.
I agree.
Is that Drazen, Ron? Didn't he do the skull experiment?
Dan Drazen, he may have been part of that documentary.
I think he was part of the
experiment, but yeah, he may have done. He also did Calling Earth, which was another good one on Vimeo.
Yeah. Well, if we look at this modern research and using the technology that you guys have devised, it is a modern influence, of course, and you're doing already something that had been done before, but without the technology. Because if we look at the phenomenon of ascended masters, that regular people, the teachers, the spiritual teachers here on Earth that die and then come back through different people, like, for example, Madame Blavatsky, Elena Blavatsky, that in fact was the founder of Theosophy, and she claimed, like many others, that she was given that information, essentially was told, and she would just record it, would write it down as many others. So while people were the vessels of this information, now we have technology that would record it, and I'm really glad that we do. So thank you for doing that.
No, it's very kind of you. Yeah, no, I agree too. It's been as part of the problem too, I think, and this is why we stress so much the reverence and respect for those who came before us. Because why would you want to start over? Like if it's like going to court and going, I know the smoking gun's on the bed, but leave it there. I'll get it later if I need it. Like they did stuff. Bacci was tested in labs with no RF signal, taking the tubes out of his radio, still got voices. Why would you not stand on principle on that idea? Because it happened. So we can't approach this from the research standpoint as if nothing has been done to vet this thing before. Mm-hmm. But in America, I know that because of the ghost boxes, the modality that everybody knows, it's what's on TV. We're starting a lot of times from square one with, they did tests and double blinds and stuff, and people didn't hear the same words in it. But that's it's irrelevant to the foundation of what we're speaking to. This stuff has been tested. It has been vetted on certain levels. And I know a lot of times this will happen too, that they'll say, well, these are the feats of lay people, which a lot of the aggregation of data comes from lay people with the way things have come culturally with paranormal research today, right? A lot of it. So they'll be, in some instances, discredited for not having the academic credentials to qualify, that the work was done with rigor, that it was done with proper scrutiny. But historically, physicists, Dr. Ernst Sinkowski, Dr. Konstantin Radove, Dr. Annabelle Cardoso, they don't get the props that those today are denied for not having credentials when they had credentials. So it's complete red herring to say that if you had these credentials, maybe we would take the work seriously. You wouldn't, because historically, when people did, you didn't.
Absolutely. Right. Yes. You're correct.
Yeah, and it's funny, like you said, Ron, you were talking about, everyone's kind of familiar with the spirit box because, it's on TV. And backstage there before the show started. I was filling you guys in on our Amherst investigation, and I had given my investigator the SB 11 spirit box, and I gave them my warning. I said I don't believe in it. I find it's garbage. It's too loud. It scans the radio frequencies. All I've ever gotten is like one-word responses, and I can tell it's coming from the radio. But I said, here you go. You guys take it. So they went upstairs. It was a small room. It was an office. You could only fit about maybe 3 people in there comfortably. So one of the homeowners went up there. My investigator, Scott Chapman, went up there. He's my videographer. And then my medium, Jody Russell, had gone up there. And initially they were doing just EVPs with a task cam and also just a digital recorder. And then after a while, they fired up the spirit box. And I had given them a warning downstairs. I said, I don't want any one-word answers. And I thought it was funny. I was telling you guys, whenever they would ask a yes or no question, the spirit box would answer in 2 words. So instead of just saying yes or no, it would actually, they were getting responses saying, yup. So it was saying yup to answer the question. And
they
then
got your orders.
There was one point.
That's right.
It did. No, that and I said that. I said maybe they heard from downstairs. Maybe they heard me say that, and that they knew I didn't want 1-word answers. So it started giving 2-word answers. And then the other interesting thing that happened is, like I said, there was 3 people in the room. There was Kim, Jody, and Scott. And at one point, the spirit box had named Scott and Kim. So, what are the chances that it's just randomly searching radio stations in Nova Scotia, and it happens to get 2 out of the 3 names that are in that room?
No. If that very, radio, you need to get lottery tickets quick.
And I even had it, at the mid setting. I think it was scanning at like 250 for both AM and FM. So the higher up you go, obviously, the more words that you get in a row, it's likely to be by chance. So, really tried to eliminate that. I thought that was really interesting. And then the other interesting thing or response that it gave was they had asked the spirit that was in the room to touch Scott. Scott claimed that he was touched twice on the back of his neck. And then they asked, why did you do that? And the response was, you asked, which was true because they did actually ask someone to touch Scott. So I thought it was, really interesting. Kind of piqued my interest because now I hadn't experienced it. I still haven't experienced anything positive with the SB11, but I trust my investigators. They're part of my organization. They're reliable. I wouldn't have them as part of the organization if they weren't. And I have to believe what they said. And there were 3 witnesses in there. There was those 2 plus an independent witness being the homeowner. So very interesting. I think the type of work that you guys are doing is absolutely phenomenal. It's just too bad we couldn't get it available out there to more of the serious researchers. And I know you guys, like we talked about it last show, that there's obviously some issues with the software, like licensing issues and things like that. Right. But I mean, no doubt, I'm sure the response you guys have gotten about the Staticom project, you guys realize you could probably produce something and make a ton of money on this in the paranormal world. So I like the fact that you guys are in it for the research purposes. But
before you guys make too much money, there's tons of money, Dr. Elliott. What are you talking about? We have to take the opportunity. The ton of money, we get the percentage. Come on.
Well, the next thing I was going to say is if you do somehow make a commercial, don't forget your friends at Science and the Paranormal, and we are looking for sponsors.
No question.
Remember us then.
We could be sponsored by the Staticom.
Right. Yes.
We remember who's good to us. Yeah, it's hard. We want to be able to share it, but it's also we're still flying the flag ourselves and still figuring it out too. With developing it. And we mentioned before that I think the last surviving of the original guard of EVP research out of Europe, Dr. Annabelle Cardoso, who also knew Bacci, Robin Foy, Bacci's wife, Foy's wife. She knew all those people. She just submitted us to the Swedish Society of Parapsychology. So our work is now being looked at and being sent over to Stockholm which we're super excited to have her endorsement and to have them excited about seeing it.
Yeah,
I'll take that kind of activity and interest any day, as much as I love doing Paracons, and it's humbling to say the least. So at some point we'd love to make it more available. I don't think we'll do an app with it ever. Tony always says, I don't think the app has the capacity to run everything, for one. And for two, I just feel like it's like putting a bumper sticker on a Cadillac. You know what I mean? Like, as soon as you do it, it's devalued in some way, because now it's got all these negative connotations of not being trustworthy. You know, is it doing? And you guys were telling us about what some of the apps have been tested to do as far as knowing your location and having contextual things it can spit out. That takes one of the foundational things that we vet our stuff with is timing and relevance. You've heard us say it over and over and over again. You lose timing and relevance if you have something mechanistically within an app that can give you something relevant to where you are and perhaps seem like it has timing because of the same reason. That's not, to me, that's not an advancement.
No,
and
not
that's
at
just
all.
it, guys. With technology, it's funny. I have this conversation all the time. Like with technology, it's just so risque. When I was with the RCMP, like I said, we employed 2 hackers at Ottawa that reverse engineered the code for the Facebook mobile app, and they found in the code that they can turn your microphone on and monitor your conversation. It's not a coincidence that when you're talking about, hey man, I'm interested in BMWs, that the next time you sign on Facebook, you're going to start getting ads about BMWs. That's why Facebook does it, is for marketing purposes. But at the end of the day, we were told if you have any piece of equipment that's electronic, you can basically assume that you're being monitored. And even the new cars now with the new systems, I know our tech crimes unit could pull text messages off the new cars. So as soon as you plug your phone in, even though you say, hey, I don't upload my contacts or all that, as soon as you plug your phone in there to start charging in your car, it's downloading all your data. And we had software to get that information off of the computer that's in the car. So you have to be cautious when you're using any of those apps. I don't use any ghost apps at all. In fact, for a study that was being done here at a Canadian university, one of my investigators wanted me to use a real EMF reader and an app that has an electromagnetic field radiation detector. So I used the 2 of them, and it was funny. I knew that if I checked my outlets, I bought a 110-year-old home. You think that maybe the electricity would be a bit off, but it wasn't. It was all rewired. When the house was first built, it had knob and tube wiring. So the electrical work in here is phenomenal. So I couldn't get anything off of my plug. So I had to go to my microwave, and I knew if I turned the microwave on, I was going to get some EMF hits. So the app on the phone told me that it was safe to stand in front of the microwave. It was actually green. It said everything was okay. But the real EMF reader was scoring around 67 milligauss, and anything that's above 10 milligauss is considered unhealthy. So the EMF reader that I was using was telling me to get away from the microwave, whereas the phone app was saying that it was okay. And that's not good. If you're going to do like a proper scientific paranormal investigation, and you're using one of those apps and you're getting hits like that are inaccurate, it doesn't look good.
Yeah, it's scary to me too that now when you see a lot of the people from, and some of them from the TV shows, but a lot of the YouTube and TikTok influencer people, when they're the primary guest at an event, at a paranormal investigation event in a lot of historic places, a lot of them are walking around using a variety of these different apps, and it's selling it to the public as, well, he uses it or she uses it, so therefore it's legit, and it will sometimes yield things. And that's all it's the gambler's mentality. If you sit down at the table, you know the house wins, but if the house loses one time and you win back 150 of the 300 you lost, you're staying there. And that's what it does. And I think it's sad because it's very misleading.
Well, it completely is. And anybody who can think about what components would need to be in a phone to make the functions of the phone work, registering EMF is not one of the functions of the chipset or sensor set in a phone to be able to give you any kind of reading at all. I mean, that to me is just common sense, but
well, many
Well,
people
that's the
are not
thing, there's-
knowledgeable in that, and that is why we have this conversation. So it's good that Tony, that you mentioned that, and Ron, absolutely, I agree with you. But nevertheless, like we mentioned last time, people don't want the truth. People are suckers for the lie, for showmanship, and that is why Hollywood is so prosperous. And for us, we want, like you guys, you want to perform this deep research before you release it to the public. But people who are not so clean in conscience, they can do this, of course.
No, I agree.
Now that no one was listening to what I was doing today, in fact, only Dr. Elliott knows what I was doing today. So if we do this experiment today, which I hope that we're still on, maybe we can be told what I was doing today. I was preoccupied with one task today. Can we run the test?
no, afraid we can't. We needed to do some tests because of the amount of additional bandwidth that's required for Staticom to run. And I can see every once in a while, I see Dr. Elliott freeze up, and I'm assuming you're the one running it. So there's no way it would handle this through a live.
Yeah, I noticed a bit of freezing on everyone's part
Yes.
tonight. Yeah, so
Yeah.
I don't know. I'd be very surprised. I know when we checked with the network, they said we could have up to 10 people in the chat, but I think if you had 10 people, it would be lagging quite a bit, unless everyone was like hardwired in. And
those are seats that are allowed within. Sorry, those are seats that are allowed within StreamYard. What it really comes down to is the ISP you're using, and that's what the suggestion for the test prior was.
Yeah, if we could test it ahead of time to do it, that it might be
Yeah.
possible. For me, one of the problems logistically, and I think Tony may have figured it out, is that I do the podcast and stuff with the same laptop that I'll run Staticom through. So I have sound input output issues where it starts coming through, and I don't hear it at the time. But then I did a show one time like that, and I heard it, and it was echoing like crazy. And people must have watched it and go, "This guy's nuts." And his system sounds like caca. Caca is Spanish for caca, by the way. It was terrible, and I was like, I can't. So that's the only reason why, if it comes across in any way, like we don't want to put our cards on the table and do it live because we're afraid it might. It's nothing to do with that, but if it's run under conditions that are not conducive to do it, and it's usually just something like
what
Tony
we should do sometime, if you guys are open to it, we should call you guys and have you guys record it, so that you guys are just doing it like in your environment. It's not being run through the internet, but then we can have a video. We can kind of play it on the show, maybe like a little clip on any interesting successes that we had with it.
That can easily be done.
Try and set.
That's a good
we
idea.
should try and set something like that. Yana and I can call in and to you guys, and then we could ask some questions, and you guys can play
that
around
would be
with
great.
it. And then we can
Well,
play.
meanwhile, we can test your ESP abilities. Dr. Elliott, you already know your ESP abilities. So try to guess one at a time what I was doing today. Let's turn on the human factor.
Gym, working out.
I said that what I was doing today. I was not at the gym all day long.
Oh.
But that was a good guess. But don't guess. Try to see what I was doing. Tony, the microphone is with you.
Gardening?
No. Why? Do I look like I was gardening or was at the gym? Today was a working day,
This
guys.
is why I build equipment. I don't have ESP. That's why I build equipment.
If we ever claim to be psychic in the future, you have us right here by the shores. If you're not,
Gardening, gym. Dr. Yan is enjoying her life, which is good. All right. Yeah, that would be great if we could just play one of your videos here as well, or call in.
Yeah, we'll have to try that sometime for sure. I'm definitely curious. No, that's funny. It was storming here quite a bit today, so I never ended up getting to do anything. It was like a crazy thunderstorm here. So it was probably the loudest I've ever heard. I thought my roof was caving in a couple times, and I'm lucky that my dog is a rescue dog from Mexico, and he was like literally for his first 4 years of his life just lived on a beach and in the woods. So I think he probably was used to a lot of thunderstorms, so it doesn't freak him out. And our other dog that grew up with him always looks at him whenever these big thunder cracks, see if he's freaking out. And when he sees that he's not freaking out, then he's okay.
Then he's okay, right?
But Meadow, I noticed Meadow was doing the same thing to me, my 4-year-old. She would look at me, and a couple times I was I must have had a look on my face because I'm like, oh my God, it's like, that's loud. And then she kind of look at me to see if I was panicking. And then I'm like, I was like, that was pretty loud, eh, Med? And just trying to calm her down. So my whole day was spent trying to make sure my kid and my 2 dogs weren't freaking out.
Yeah.
No, but no, that's interesting. We'll have to do we'll have to do a session sometime. I'd be interested to see what comes in with the 4 of us for sure.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, we'd be happy to do it. And StreamYard at least may be possible. We did lives before through Zoom. Zoom is even worse.
Zoom cannot be done. It can't handle the audio coming from 2 sources, meaning if you're trying to speak to while the machine is running, it can't handle both audios. Zoom just falls apart. StreamYard can handle it, but the bandwidth has to be there in order to, because one computer is going to be sending out 2 signals and 2 audio signals. You speaking through the mic and Staticom running and you asking questions. So it doubles or triples the amount of bandwidth going back and forth. But
I can only imagine. One of our guests took a guess too. They asked if Dr. Yana was working and preparing for the show. That is a good guess, though. Yeah.
That was close. That was very close because I was, in fact, preparing for the show and writing the syllabus for PPRI for the Dream Studies course that we are going to be offering this fall, and that is going to be the fantastic course in 2 parts. So as soon as we're done with that, as soon as we have the ad for it, we will let you guys know.
Yeah, if we can help you promote it and let people know about it, we'd be happy to do that. That's great.
Or in any way we can help, we will.
Yeah, for sure, guys. Actually, I wouldn't mind having you guys on. I'm trying to develop a introduction to electronic voice phenomena course, but I want to make it a little bit practical, where people how to use like Adobe, either Adobe Editions or any sort of maybe free software that's available to help people analyze EVPs and like enhance audio and separate clips and things like that. And with your guys' knowledge about EVPs and ITC, I would certainly keep you guys in mind as to come in as guest speakers. So
awesome.
If you guys were interested in something like that,
I'd be honored to do it. Yeah,
absolutely.
Some folks I've heard will take ITC recordings and the way they process it to edit it to present it. And I know what they're doing. They're trying to isolate the vocals, but they'll silence it between the responses. So you hear the sweep get flattened out, and then they'll cut out a lot of the sweep in between just to put it closer together so it takes up less time. But meanwhile, it sounds more butchered than a bad plastic surgery. And it's
right.
And it's just, to me, it sounds it's implicating itself in fraud, even if it's not, because it sounds way too produced and doctored. So there is a certain finesse to working with audio. I always refer to it like metaphorically like an archaeologist. Like you don't just grab a pitchfork and start yanking bones out of the ground, right? They dust it off. So you're trying to preserve and reveal what's there organically without damaging it, without distorting it, without changing its shape and its fundamental properties. That's what we try to do when we try to go through and edit audio. But a lot of people, it's creative beyond control, and it sounds way too produced, and it's not. I don't think it's good.
Right.
Well, you guys have a phenomenal point there too, especially in today's day and age with technology, with artificial intelligence being able to produce sound waves and video waves. You know, you don't want to be doctoring things up inappropriately. You want it to be done the proper way, and you're showing, you know, people the proper acoustics that are involved in it, or the proper soundbite, because there's just too much and it's too easy to fake stuff now. And like when people send me TikTok videos, like I watch them for entertainment purposes, but I have no idea if they're, you know, real or not. I mean, it's almost become, the paranormal is back to seeing is believing. You almost have to be there now to see it for yourself to know that it's real, because everything's just so good now. And it's scary, because before I retired in 2020, and at that time, I know our RCMP tech crime unit was having difficulty determining what was real and what was not real for digital evidence. But now, fast forward 4 years later, I'm sure that they're having a nightmare on some things. I mean, you can doctor almost anything now. It's wild.
Now we're going back to the human factor. We need to believe ourselves and our own senses.
Yeah, true.
And integrity has something that has a little bit more value now, I think, too, right? You mentioned before your team got stuff with an SB11. You were iffy about the device, but not the people using it. So there, you know, thereby you have something that you feel comfortable with because of the way it was aggregated from whom it was aggregated. That makes
process and procedure make or break the entire explanation about what they're using or how they're using it. Either one can go wrong if it was put together wrong, if the theory behind what they believe is happening is wrong, or if the method under which they're using it or trying to decipher what's coming through is wrong. It blows everything out of the water. All three of those have to be in sync and done in the professional manner that's going to give the results that you want to get. Otherwise, it's diluted. But just on that thought, do you guys want to hear a clip that I captured between the first show we did and this show?
Oh, yes.
Okay, I'll share it. Now, this is a question that as paranormal investigators, we stopped asking about year one of the 14 and a half years we've been doing this because A, it never got answered, and B, the question can be considered a little disrespectful, but it's asking how they died. Well, my wife, I was running it, my wife came up and asked this question, and she asked them, how did you die? Well, this particular entity answered. So let me bring up this window, share the audio, and I will play it for you. Where's audio? Where'd it go? Why won't it let me share the audio?
That's usually what I do also with a past life regression, asking what was the cause of death and how you died. So that is very interesting.
If it won't work for you, Tony, you can always email a clip to me real quick if you want.
I think I got it. I got it.
Perfect.
Okay, so I'm going to share this. When you bring it up, I'll play it.
Here, okay, here it is.
There it is.
All right, here it is.
Do you know how did you die?
I mean, that's as clear as it gets. You want me to play it one more time?
Yeah, play it one more time for me.
Do you know how did you die?
I'm terrible at guessing these EVP things. What did it say to Tony? I could hear your wife very clearly.
Said I had cancer.
Can you play it one more time? Let's play it.
Sure. Just let me pull it back up. Is the audio coming through, Ron?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, her voice is louder than the recording, but you can hear it.
Do you know how did you die?
Okay, yeah, I can hear it now. Yeah.
Now, we've never gotten a response to that question before, so this kind of took us back because
She sounded very the spirit that was talking actually sounded like very open about it. Really, it didn't.
correct.
Didn't seem
Yeah,
like they
no
were.
hesitation about speaking it. No emotional value.
It
attached
almost
to
sounded like an interview. It was like, did you know how you die? And she said, yes, I had cancer. Yeah, that's really, really interesting.
Were there other questions that you were asking before?
Yeah, that was about an hour and a half session. So there were a whole bunch of questions in there.
So that was an interview, in fact.
Yeah.
Well, it wasn't the same spirit through the entire time. They come and go. That is the one factor we don't have control over. We cannot make them answer. We have to assume that they still have free will to some degree, and they can, whether they choose to respond or not is up to them.
Do you guys have any other clips? Some of our audience is obviously very interested.
Ron, I know you have a ton just from.
I have a couple. You started something that's turning out to be fun. Look at this.
Sorry, I like to do that.
You and your fun, Rathman. Damn you and your fun.
Well, when you're serious all day, you got to have fun at night.
Yeah, like I've been gardening today and going to the gym all day.
That's right.
You've been at the gym and gardening.
Yeah, that's why I build equipment, don't do ESP sessions.
Yeah, that was really cool.
You know what? I can show. This is between the last time we were here too. This is Lourdes and I went to Pennsylvania, to Columbia, PA, and if you know Daryl Marston from the reboot of Ghost Hunters, he's got a project called My Haunted Manor. It's affiliated with My Haunted Hotel in the UK, and so we went and did it twice within 2 weeks. But the first time we went, they were going off of information they had gotten from mediums and some historical information they were able to cull that had to do with somebody possibly being murdered and abused and such in the basement of this place. And so we were down there. We were running Staticom upstairs, but we brought the speaker downstairs because it was within range that we could go right below where we were set up. So all we had was a speaker down there. And then so Lourdes started asking questions about that specific person being killed there, and we got a few responses that came through in real time, and it was that night was probably one of the most interactive that we've ever had. I actually have 2 clips from that evening. It was crazy.
This is a great clip.
So let me go to the share screen, present, share screen, entire screen, share audio. Let me know when you see it, and I'll switch to the.
Yeah, I see it there. Yeah.
All right, so you get that whole effect. So let me get rid of that. All right, so this is it. If you don't hear it, let me know.
If they started digging, what would they find?
First,
Oh my God.
yeah.
Oh my God, yeah.
Is it a male or a female person? Male or female?
Woman.
A woman.
Where was that at, Ron?
That was at what's called My Haunted Manor in it's a Samuel Miller mansion in Columbia, Pennsylvania. They've made it like a paranormal research headquarters, which is admirable what they're doing. They have cameras running all the time. They're constantly logging data. They have different people and groups come in and do investigations. And the place is historically quite significant because all the buzz and notability that goes around Gettysburg and the battle and all the deaths that happened there. I think it was the Bridge and Banks or Bridge and Commons, I forget the name of the organization, that was housed out of this house, this mansion, in order to stop the troops from the South in the U.S. advancing the Confederates, where they probably would have taken Harrisburg and then they would have won the war. They blew up the bridge so that they couldn't cross into the north. And because they did that, the Confederate armies instead went through Gettysburg, and that's why everything that happened in Gettysburg happened, because of the people who met at this place decided to blow up the bridge to stop the advancement of the South. So there's a lot of history tied to this place. So that was one of them. If you want, I could show you the other one. There were signs. I don't have a picture of it in this one because at the time I didn't know I needed it. There were signs that had these dirt areas in the basement just for safety purposes. They don't want you to go. So there were do not enter signs hung on these spots. So before we officially started the recording session for the show, just to test it out, because we brought the speaker downstairs, I started asking questions about that. And then a voice pretty much told me what was on the sign, but rephrased it, which is interesting because now it's contextually correct, but it's not regurgitating back my words. So I have it ready.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, for sure. Let's play it.
All right, so here's the other one.
Can you tell me what this sign
Really interesting. You can see how during an investigation you want as little people there as possible, or
I was just gonna say that. Yes.
Because as soon as they got excited, it kind of like interrupted that. But once you slowed it down, you could actually hear it very well. Yeah, I've had situations like that too, where the environment's just so noisy. Especially on like when you do public ghost hunts. Normally, if I know I'm doing a public ghost hunt with the public, I know I'm just doing it for fun because it's not going to have those controlled conditions. So that was really interesting, but it was really neat that you caught that. That's really cool.
We record for all instances just because sometimes even when you're in the less than optimal conditions, something comes through clear at a moment when it was quiet. Like after that, Daryl was like, "Stop asking questions until we get the cameras running," because. And I asked one more. There was a toy buried in the dirt, and I said, "What's the toy below my feet?" And it said "rolling pin," and that's what it was. It was a little toy rolling pin. So there was a lot of direct answers that night, and it was a smaller private group that night. But sometimes because of the clarity, and if you heard even on the first one, when Lourdes asked, if they dig, what are they going to find? We've got Staticom tuned to a point where you don't hear anything. You don't even hear a noise floor until something vocally comes out. And when it does, and it's clear to respond, like that's why sometimes you get the people kind of like cheering and reacting. I reacted strongly to the person one too, because like it was just, it never becomes old hat. It never becomes, blasé where you go, oh yeah, that's what happens, because it is still in every sense of the word, both technically and, descriptively phenomenal when it happens.
Yeah, that's amazing. You guys do great work, and look forward to continuing to follow your work as you guys go along. What are some ways that people can follow your work, get in touch with you? Are you guys on, do you guys mostly, I know you have a YouTube page, but are you guys on Facebook, YouTube, TikTok? What are some social medias that people can follow you and follow your work?
The easiest two websites, and I'm going to spell this out because somebody watched the last show we did, and they're like, you said those too fast. No one's going to be able to pick out what you said. So GONYAC-paranormal.com. That's spelled GONYAC, paranormal.com. The other site is entityvoices.com. Those are the two websites. You can find us on YouTube underneath Staticom, just by typing in Staticom. And then, of course, all four people who actually are the members of the Staticom team all have Facebook pages. Myself, Ron, Lourdes Gonzalez, and, of course, my wife, Cherie Rathman.
I just posted the first one, the GONYAC-paranormal.com. What was the entity one?
Entityvoices.com.
Entityvoices.com.
Just to clarify, too, for the Gonyak thing, sometimes it raises the eyebrow. So Lourdes' last name is Gonzalez. Mine is Yacovetti. And so she created Gonyak as a prefix for a Gmail, Gonyak, whatever. at Gmail. And then I thought, oh, we thought maybe this is a good name to use because it's not cliche. You're not going to hear anybody else using it.
Turned out to be some Slavic last name or
Right.
first.
Well, so people ask us sometimes, they go, why didn't you start with your name? Why isn't it Yak Gone? I said, because that sounds like a bug repellent and nobody's going to want it. So it's gone Yak.
That's funny. I was just checking for you to see if Stati.com was available, but it looks like it's taken by
an actual energy company. Correct.
Yeah. That's interesting. And what about is Staticom.com taken? Did you guys check that one out?
We should check a few of them.
Yeah.
That one looks like it's taken too.
It is.
Well, perhaps there is a sponsor who's listening to our show today who would like to sponsor your show or your project and your device. That would be very interesting. I'm thinking about myself all the time. Let's sponsor my show and sponsor your show, your device.
It looks like Staticom.com sells some pretty cool cowboy hats there, guys.
Maybe next time we come on, we'll have cowboy hats.
Yeah, you guys.
You should message and see if they'll sponsor you. Get a couple of cowboy hats. Yeah.
Cross promote that name.
Yeah. Get them flooded with emails with people asking them to talk to ghosts.
No, that's fantastic. I know you guys have been busy. I appreciate you guys taking the time to come and speak to us. It's to hear some of the clips that you guys have captured, and I look forward to following your work in the future. And if I can get you guys to the 2025 Halifax Paranormal Symposium, I'm certainly going to try and do that. And then we'll all have to go for a cold beverage afterwards, because
that's the best part.
I'll be there. Hopefully you guys will be there, and whoever else we have as guest speakers. Yeah.
Let's make it happen. Let's make it happen. And we appreciate you again having us back on. This is a great show. You guys keep the bar high as far as quality of the show and the guests that you have on. So we're honored to be included in that and to give us a platform to be able to share what it is we think we're doing here. So thank you for that. It's nice to be invited once, but to have us back again this soon was really, really kind.
We appreciate that very much.
Yeah, no, that's great. Like I said, I'll keep you guys in mind for anything else that I can do too. Like I said, if I end up getting that introduction to EVP course off, if you guys are available to be guest speakers, I'll certainly keep you guys in mind. And, I'll certainly share any of your stuff on our social media.
Awesome.
When I come across it. So,
and likewise too, when you have your courses and stuff that you're going to be doing set up,
let us know. We can plaster them out all over social media.
Yep.
Okay, I have
last
favor, guys, to ask you. So when you will be doing your sessions, your interviews, hour-long, all day long, could you ask a question about me? I want to see what the answer is going to be. I'm still waiting for Carl Jung to come through.
All right.
Just see what is there about me.
Okay.
All right. That would be very interesting. And just call me or email, but that would be great. Yeah.
And we are operating off of analytic idealism as a philosophy, which is largely Jungian based, as he was an idealist as well.
Let's see what the interesting verbiage is going to come through once you start talking to Carl Jung. Let's see. Why not? Why not? Let's try that. We're not going to use a Ouija. What is it called? The Ouija board, right? We're not going to use that. Oh, by the way, just recently I saw it. Somebody threw it out right there on the street. It was so crazy. It wasn't even in the trash can, just like on the street. So evidently somebody was done with that. So we're not using that. The Ouija board, it's a technology. So let's have something come through.
All right.
Maybe he's sitting there waiting for us to ask him.
Right, guys. Very well could be.
Yep.
Well, thank you so much for coming onto our show tonight. And we are grateful that you accepted our invitation. Meanwhile, everyone, go to sleep. It's late. Have a good night, everyone.
Thank you so much, guys. You were listening to Science and the Paranormal, broadcasting live on the United Public Radio Network, the UFO Paranormal Radio Network, 105.3, 107.7 FM out of New Orleans, and on Roku TV. Special guests, Tony Rathman and Ron Yacovetti. Next week, Dr. Yana and I are just riding solo, so we'll do another open mic.
No. Next week we have Lynn Buchanan. Again,
I have that in the calendar, Dr. Yana.
I'm so sorry because I just confirmed. That was so interesting. Just confirmed because I tried to get a hold of him for so long and technology was not cooperating with me. So, no,
okay,
serious,
so we do have a guest next week.
We do have Lynn Buchanan and he's coming back. We will speak about what are we going to talk to him about, Dr. Elliott?
Extraterrestrials?
Not extraterrestrial. That as well on remote viewing. We'll be asking him questions. Some of the questions he couldn't answer before, of course, in the last show. He's not allowed to talk about certain issues. I promised to him that we're not going to ask all those curious questions. But we will discuss a little bit more about the protection of the remote viewers and some other issues as well. So come join us next Tuesday.
Sounds great. Thank you so much. Everyone have a great night.
Thank you.
Good night, everyone. Good night.
Good night.